I'm here with the Honorable Dr. Dale Layman, the founder and president of Robowatch LLC, an international nonprofit group dedicated to keeping a watchful eye on the fast-moving fields of robotics, computing, and artificial intelligence. A graduate of the University of Michigan, where he received his BS in anthropology and zoology and his Master's of Science in physiology. He earned his PhD from the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana in 1986 in the Department of Health and Safety Studies. He received a second PhD and a grand PhD in medicine from the World Information Distributed University. Dr. Layman has continued his education throughout his career, earning several honorary degrees and global accolades. He eventually earned the unique distinction of being the first Grand Doctor of Philosophy in Medicine for the United States. Dr. Layman has been described as having a deep knowledge of science, technology, the humanities, and religion. Dr. Layman, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
The Grand Doctors Committee has called you a celebrated scientist, a splendid pedagogue, and a bearer of genuine American culture. You were hired in 1975 as a permanent instructor in the National Science Department of Joliet Junior College, where you worked for more than 30 years, primarily teaching human anatomy and physiology courses. In 2001, you started Robowatch LLC. Can you talk about that progression? What were some of your first inclinations that there might be a very concerning aspect of technology and innovation that desperately needs our attention?
This is very interesting, Dan, because what I wanted to do, I like writing. I'm an author. I'm author of 7 textbooks. I enjoy writing, and there were traveling reps of various publishing companies coming in my office and say they're looking for new ideas in anatomy and physiology. It says, so I started doing research. And what I did, there's this huge volume called The Great Catalog of Body Order and Disorder. Order, what I found when I started studying is, for example, the ancient Egyptians, by sticking their right arm out in a horizontal, if you stand with your feet together and stick your right either arm out horizontally, drop a line perpendicular to the ground, a rectangle is described in space between you. So therefore, that's an example of geometric order or recognizable pattern in space. Oh, that's somatoform, meaning body somat formed. So the ancient Egyptians, mysteriously intelligent Egyptians, were the first to create a geometric plane that is a rectangle in 2 dimensions. Oh, but it's formed from rectangles, therefore shouldn't we teach and learn human anatomy and physiology? Because its structure is derived from geometry. Oh, so I started looking for the great catalog of order and disorder through the vast array of the arts and sciences, and I got a huge 400-page giant volume that I did research on arts, sciences, religion, looking for pattern or order on the one side and disorder or lack of pattern on the other. Say you've got my arm, and my arm bone here, this is the radius of the inner arm bone, and the radius bone here is an example of biological order in anatomy, body structure. It has an intact structure. So this I would code as 1, presence of pattern or order. On the other hand, what if I fall and break my radius? Then that's an example of break order or 0, disorder. So we study in normal human anatomy and physiology, we study normal intact body structures and functions like a normal radius. And then we have abnormal A&P, that's disorders, fractures that we do in medicine and nursing. These are my students. They go into nursing and medicine. So there's a simple way of breaking information into 0 is no pattern or break pattern, it's 0, and 1 is pattern or order. So a fractured radius is 0. Break pattern, intact radius is 1. Just like in a binary digital computer, 0 is the current on, 1 is the current on, and 0 is off. So you see, Binary digital computers, 0 and 1. Binary pattern order based in the body is 0 or 1. 1 is pattern or order. 2 is break pattern or no order. Intact bones or broken bones. You can do that for every structure and function in the body. So one of the things that we have in common is a plane-based rectangles, getting things right or wrecked. You want to get things, in fact, I was a nervous wrecked on my way here because I wanted to make sure I got things straight, okay? And so rectangles, now look at the right angles, okay? Look at the right angle of the crucifix. There are 4 right angles. I want to get that correct. So there are 4 right angles in a cross, so it has religious significance, okay? Because we want to be upright and righteous, we want to have rectitude, we want to be correct. So you see how this has manifested itself throughout the language of all the disciplines. Number 2, a lot of these have a crystalline or grid matrix outline. Okay, so you look at a chessboard or checkerboard, it's a grid matrix, but what it is, it's a bunch of horizontal and vertical lines arrayed at right angles to one another. And so originally computer scientists in the 50s would be playing chess on grid-like patterns, and they'd do cells of computers using computer arrays on cell-like patterns. So there's a grid-like commonality between human games like chess and checkers and ancient Egyptian games. Ancient Egyptians used the same types of pieces on a board. It's a matrix. And there's also a crystalline grid matrix structure in bones. If you look at my bones at the microscope, they're crystalline arrays of crystals of very calcium and whatnot arrayed in there. So it's a bony matrix of embedded right angles. Number 3, symmetry, a balance of structure or form. There's a symmetry we have if you put a plane right down through the middle of the body. If we stand in the so-called anatomic position, it's a standard reference position, standing straight, looking ahead, your 2 arms hanging loosely at the sides, your palms facing forward and your feet apart. That's the anatomic position, and you pass geometric or anatomic planes down through the middle of the sagittal suture, which looks like an arrow shot over the front of your skull, right down to the middle. That's called the mid-sagittal suture or body midplane. And on either side, then, this is the anatomic right, this is the anatomic left. There's a high degree of bilateral or 2-sided symmetry on either side of the body. So you see there's order and symmetry. Number 4, we have relative constancy or homeostasis of body functions like physiology. Homeo means sameness, stasis control of. So we have what's called homeostasis, a control of sameness or relative constancy of various body functions, such as your oral body temperature in degrees Fahrenheit. If you look at it through time, there's a set point. Through time, I have a dotted line. The set point's about 98.6 degrees F. That's the average long-term trend. If you have time on this axis and amount on the vertical axis, you can make a line at 98.6. That's the set point that the temperature control center of the brain has established. A high degree of biological order and a very precise feedback system using to keep this there. Now, another thing is negative feedback control systems to keep your oral body temperature at 98.6. Your brain keeps it about 98.6, but there are stressors in the environment. You go out and exercise, your temperature goes up to 99.6. That's the upper normal limit. Then normally it will come back down again when you cool down. Then it goes back below the set point to maybe 97.6 degrees Fahrenheit because you're getting cool. But then controlled negative feedback works to bring it back up to the set point, or at the top, bring it back down. So you get a sine wave-like variation about the mean. In the normal range, you can see the diagram in space. The dotted line is at 98.6 degrees F. 99.6 is the upper normal limit. It won't go past that. It'll go back down to 97.6 at the lower normal limit. 99.6, 97.6, 99.6, 97.6. It's variation around the mean, and it has a high degree of biological order by negative feedback control systems. These are control systems that feedback to decrease the amount of change in the body from its set point value. So you see, the human body is very conservative, and it does not allow a limited change for you to survive. That's key for what we are as homeostatic organisms in this environment, and we are homeostatically controlled and living in an environment of computers that is not. Number 6, programmed learning. A lot of the books I've written, 7 textbooks in anatomy, physiology, and biology, and medical terminology. Also, I dissect terms by using slash marks like homeostasis, H-O-M-E/ between E and O slash stasis, stasis, suffix control of. O, combining vowel. Homeo, a root for same. Homeostasis exactly translates to mean control of sameness. So what we've done is we've used also these grids as dividers of medical terms in order to properly dissect Latin and Greek terms into their literal translations. And that's very clever, because you can see what the word really means. Get it? I'm trying to find out what the words really mean. It's very orderly, and you're using grids to help dissect words. Then we also, so in program learning, we do that in terminology, but programmed is you start out in learning frames, and it's like a computer, but you do it on your own. Frame number 1, anatomy is the blank of body structure. Study of, or anatomy is a study of blank. You write in body structure, and the side of the margin is body structure. Frame 2, but physiology is the study of body function. It's in the margin. So you progressively go in a logically numbered sequence of frames, but it's not the computer doing it, the human brain is. Why does the computer have all the fun? Can't we logically build and number programmed? So that's programmed learning. It's a step-by-step logical sequence of putting in numbers and words so we understand the logic. It's a building. Number 7, I think, is a hierarchy. You build a hierarchy, a level of knowledge by piling one upon another, just like the ancient Egyptians did by piling up layers of a pyramid. They make a pyramid by putting one stratum or layer on another. That's a aggregation of layers. Is very elegant. We have a hierarchy of smaller to bigger structures in our own body, the smallest ones being the atoms, hydrogen, COH, and carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen, the teeny particles of which we are made, and then there's subatomic particles, the electrons, neutrons, protons. Those are the subatomic particles, and higher up above them is the atoms. And the atoms are connected together by chemical bonds to make molecules. Groups of molecules are grouped together to form organelles, tiny little organs and cells. Groups of organelles become cells, and so forth and so on. So there's a hierarchy of levels of organization, like the ancient pyramids of the Egyptians, that the human body, the human organism, your entire body is at the top, and at the bottom is the subatomic level. So we build up. So it's very orderly and very precise, and we're not tolerant of great deviations from this in our environment, and computer-like thinking takes a very then stereotyped and logical move to human learning, which is very much like what you can do in a computer, but you do it slowly and you do it yourself. What do you need a computer for to be so fast? Do your own thinking.
In 1999, you gave a speech at the National Convention of Text and Academic Authors entitled Facing the Robotic Challenge. It was in that speech that you introduced the concept of CompuThink, or computer-like modes of human thinking. Tell us a little bit about what that means and its relevancy in today's world.
If you don't mind, what I will do to partially quote from, I have extensive biographical, I have volumes in my basement of biographical volumes. This is 2007, Ambassadors of Grand Eminence, the Statesman's edition in the American Biographical Institute. And I was in all these institutes, and they're no longer even here, but I got volumes of stuff. So they describe exactly what happened. During this landmark talk, Dr. Layman, if you don't mind me reading a little bit, Dr. Layman described his unique concept, CompuThink, is computer-like modes or ways of human thinking. Dr. Layman stressed the critical importance of fully developing CompuThink for the soft child, future human beings, and their natural intelligence, and coping with the rapidly growing influence of the hard child, hypercomputerization, advanced robotics, and the artificial intelligence during the third millennium. Dr. Layman sees CompuThink as a crucial new alternative to robotics and unthinking computerization as we face the perils and promise of the new millennium. That was before the dawn of the 21st century. In an article by Kim Pollack, Arthur frets over robot intelligence, he explains what he will discuss during his presentation. As the new millennium approaches, that's after 2000, human beings face a different world, one increasingly without a human face, says anatomy and physiology author Dale Layman. Is it a world in which the human face is being supplanted by a robotic face? A world in which human labor is being replaced by robotic labor. And he said, most alarmingly, in which natural human intelligence is being strongly challenged by an ever more sophisticated computer technology and its high-tech offspring, artificial intelligence. Okay, so what we're basically saying is then, how can we face this robotic challenge? If you can't beat them, then try to join them. Do we always have to use computers for everything? Can we use CompuThink to use our natural intelligence to think and manipulate information logically, which is rule-based and very logical and pleasing, somewhat like a computer does, but without always having to use a computer? If we're not in a big hurry, why not? That's the premise. And I think it's logical, and there's a high degree of geometric order and application to the appeal of human logic, which needs to be practiced and developed. So that's why CompuThink could be of great benefit, and it should be, instead of ignored, why computerize everything just because you can? Just because you can computerize everything, is that the best thing? Are you sure it always has to be faster and easier? Why not have students learn logic for themselves?
That's a good question. The great 2045 robo-death clock, which signifies a technological extinction of mankind that is looming due to the overwhelming technological advantages that robots, cyborgs, supercomputers, and AI have over humans. Can you explain that? What is the significance of the year 2045? And what can be done to avoid this collision course that we currently find ourselves on?
The significance of the 2045, that's the approximate date at which the 205 we call the Great Robo-Death Clock. If we take, again, I like to use the black sand hourglass, okay, to illustrate the passage of time. We think we're having progress because technology, digital electronic technology, and computers, robots, and AI moves forward by Moore's law. That means it approximately doubles its capacity every 2 years or so. While our own M.I.T, though great, stays the same. The problem is then you have a finite amount of time interval before the artificial intelligence, the robots, becomes a great challenge to our own M.I. because it's starting out at a lower level, but time is not on our side because our time is running out. Because as our time runs out, their opportunity goes up. There's a limited finite amount of time between now, which is what, the year 2019, and the year 2045, okay? That's only about 25 years or so. That's all between now and then. Where will you be in 25 years, or where will your children be? I may be 95, maybe I'll be lucky to live. What about your children, my darling children, and their children? Don't they deserve a chance? Because during this time interval, when our sand is running into the hourglass, we are going down into a black hole of cyberspace. This is a black hole of cyberspace. There are black holes in outer space. The University of Illinois has just released to me the first imagery of the first photographed black hole in outer space in a faraway galaxy. So we have the very first images of a black hole in outer space. Nothing escapes from a black hole. If you've got a spaceship and you're unfortunate enough to get close in there, you are pulled in by a gravitational force into what's called the singularity, the black core at the base of a black hole. It's called the technological singularity. It's the black hole of maximum density at the base of a black hole. And any object, the gravitational field is irresistible. Any object get caught in there will be pulled down in and it will not escape. So good thing we don't have any rocket ships near there. However, we have black hole, that's a black hole in outer space, which is death. So is a black hole in cyberspace. Envision the progress of computer technology as being an endless, deep black hole for which as we go farther and farther down in there through time, when our time runs out by 2045, we'll all be down at the mercy of the black hole, where everything is being transmuted into its computerized smart equivalent. AI's got its tentacles. We have smart food. We have smart phones. We have smart vacations. Oh, everything is smart on TV. It's smart this. Oh, it's so improved. It's all smart because they put AI into it, not us. Suckers. We're running out of time by the year. What's going on is, by Moore's law, AI doubles its capacity about every 2 years. So this is an estimate. It's estimated that by about the year 2045, AI will now be strong AI or superintelligence, which is more than 1,000 times as strong as our own NI in our natural brain. Now, that's why I call it the death clock. You think you're going to survive past the great robo-death year 2045? Why should an AI think of us as any more than an ant? Here's from this, our final invention. Here's a quote from Eliza Yudowski, research fellow at the Machine Intelligence Research Institute. The AI does not hate you, nor does it love you, but you are made out of atoms, which it can use for something else. The AI doesn't hate you, nor does it love you, but you are made out of atoms, which it can use for something else. And if they're telling us the logic of these machines will not be similar to our own because they are not of our part, they're not of the natural world. Why could they not? We're an inferior creature just like an ant. Why aren't we just like an ant? Why do you think we'll have a competitive chance to survive past the great robo-death year 2045 when all these smart objects around us, including our computers, our cell phones, and everything we've unwisely made AI imbued, is going to take over? Why should they tolerate us? We are an inferior species on our way out. So see why this is so, because AI, as far as we know, cannot be stopped and cannot be controlled. We're running out of time.
We have been hearing a lot in the news recently about potential job displacement due to artificial intelligence. There are certainly competing views on the topic. Elon Musk has said, there's a pretty good chance we end up with a universal basic income or something like that due to automation. However, Bill Gates recently said that AI is a positive for society and that displaced workers could fill gaps that currently exist elsewhere in the labor market, like elder care, teaching, and support for special needs children. Stephen Schwartzman, chairman and CEO of Blackstone Group, has recently announced a $350 million donation to MIT in order to transform it into America's first AI-based university. Mr. Schwartzman has stated that there will be a focus on the ethics of the introduction of these new AI and technologies. What are your thoughts on the potential positives and negatives that these developments could have on our society?
First of all, he's making a capital error that he's presuming that his view of the future is okay. He's saying that with Mr. Schwartzman is a multimillionaire, and he and I watched him, and he's sitting at the side of President Trump, which makes me very disturbed because I've written to the president begging him to help us. He's right at the elbow of President Trump, and he's saying, one reason I want to go in, I want to make MIT, the premier technology university in this country, the first AI-based university in the world. An AI-based university. Why do I want to do this? Because I like to do things that are transformative. And so therefore, we're going to make a transformative in what way? He wants to make a dramatic difference, but he's a businessman. I don't think he's had anything in ethics. He's business. And he's got his favorite pet projects, and he likes to run. Okay? Well, so do I. But I know doing too much of anything, he's in track and field, so he supports, one thing is he supports athletes in track and field and helps them. And he's interested in AI because it's transformative and it's dramatic. Okay, well, let's not be too dramatic with our helping our students. They have a finite capacity to run, and you want to help them run faster and so forth. Well, I studied at University of Illinois in 1986. My PhD thesis was The Runner, a profile of injury and addiction. And I found that one of the primary things is running is good for you, and I run. However, the old wisdom is the Greeks told us you can have too much of a good thing. Everything in moderation, okay? If you run too far, too fast, and too often, then you subject yourself to too much stress, and you have increased musculoskeletal injury to the point where you may not even be able to run. And this is what I demonstrated in my study of addiction to running and injury. The addicted person overtrains because they're addicted. They have a behavioral addiction to running, and they can't stop until they get musculoskeletal injury. Then they're in a wheelchair or on crutches. Get it? He hasn't studied. He doesn't know. He's a businessman who knows how to make money, and he's an arrogant fool. He's an arrogant fool, and he better watch out, because I'm going to raise up an army and we will fight against them, because they're going to do something substantive and transformative. And it says, well, we'll focus on the ethics. Why? Because you said so. And they're going to hire all these people and give them billions of dollars to MIT, and he's going to wisely plot out our future because it's transformative. Transformative means we won't be human anymore. What they're going to do is probably implant computer chips into people's brains and make them robo-sapiens. And that's one reason I have the grand PhD in medicine. I've been assigned the global problem of Homo sapiens. Mankind is, we have always known it, evolving into Robo sapiens, a competing robotic cyborgian species. And there's a book called Robo Sapiens showing you these, and the Robo Sapiens, the transhumanists, the cyborgs are cybernetic organisms. You got a computer chip in your brain or body. You no longer have normal anatomy and physiology. It's doing something transformative. It's changing you into something that isn't human anymore. And then they have robotic limbs, robotic bones, and computer chips in their brains and so forth. And that's what they're wanting to the University of Reading in England. They want to make these transhumanist beings there, and they're attempting to do that. And I went there and protested to them, and the transhumanists don't like me. I've got threats from the Transhumanist Society, and we are watching you, okay? We have a right to self-defense, and they spell defense, D-E-F-E-N-C-E. That means they're British. So they're British transhumanists, and I visited them on the University of Reading in England and heard their man talking there, okay? And they're going to try to make a bunch of transhumanists, and the Illuminati, who are the worshipers of evil, also warned me. So who has warned me that they're watching me? The Illuminati, the worshipers of evil and the devil, and the transhumanists, who are the cyborgs. These are the people who don't like what I'm doing, and they feel a threat. Is that what we want? And this is where we're going with this Stephen Schwartzman to make MIT the first AI-based university, and there's no way to control it. You can't make it ethical because it cannot be controlled.
Fair enough. Well then, how can we balance the delicate and potentially life-threatening advancement in technology that currently serves to fill the need to reduce labor costs and increase efficiency in today's competitive economy?
I have a couple of books there, is The Coming Jobs War. The problem is not business efficiency, it's giving people what they need. What every leader must know about the future of job creation. Also, another book is called The Lights in the Tunnel: Automation, Accelerating Technology, and the Economy of the Future. So, Lights in the Tunnel and The Coming Jobs War, okay? The Coming Jobs War talks about the coming world war is an all-out war, global war for good jobs. Okay, we are not making enough good jobs, what 7 billion people want. Okay, we call it the world poll. We started in 2005 and are committed to doing it for 100 years. These are the Gallup poll people. So these are these are the experts in the Gallup poll. And what do people want? What the whole world wants is a good job. The single most dominant thought on most people's minds is about having a good job. Now, people want to have a good job, and they want their children to have a good job. When people talk about a good job, they mean a job that gives them the amount of work they want, okay? Leaders of countries and cities, like our president and other leaders, must make creating jobs their #1 mission and primary purpose, because good jobs are becoming the new currency for all world leaders, okay? All right? America holds a special place in the global economy because it has a massive GDP and is a long-standing beacon for entrepreneurs all over the world. America has an economic and moral authority that no other country has. The authority is eroding. America has a unique responsibility on the world stage. We are a beacon of free enterprise, and we must recognize the value that a job-creating U.S. economy holds for them. So when you have people in business, don't worry about economizing and reducing costs. You need to produce jobs. Now, the Lights in the Tunnel looks at, the tunnel is the mass system of commerce in our country, and the lights are the individual contributions of people and businesses to our gross domestic product. You want a tunnel that's lit. A tunnel lit means you have the mass consumerism, where the lights in the tunnel are consumers with money. Now, if you start restricting jobs, you're going to have a problem. At some point in the future, it may be many years or decades from now, machines will be able to do the jobs of a large percentage of the average people in our population. And these people will not be able to find new jobs. Automation comes to the tunnel. We're getting automation coming to the tunnel because automation is taking the jobs away from the people in the tunnel. We can now sense that many of the businesses in the tunnel are clearly in trouble, even though they are continuing to save money. For what? Using automation. But it's short-sighted. Even though they are continuing to save money as automation slowly eliminates some of their remaining workers, this is not enough to make up for the reduction in sales they are experiencing. Many of these companies are now at the point where they must take action to survive. For this reason, a business which sees rapidly falling demand usually has only one choice in order to survive: cut more jobs. However, here's what's happening: human capability versus computer technology. Look what's going on over time. You can see over time, computer technology, you can see this upward curve is going up, and look at human curve. Human workers' capability to perform jobs has tapered off. Look what's happening. Look at the defect or the discourse, the disjunct between computer capability and the human workers to perform jobs. You can see it's only a matter of time before they're way above us. So we have a point of diminishing returns. You're going to have jobs that they're not going to need any workers. So you're cutting off your own leg. If you're going to say we're going to reduce workers and save them due to automation, there's no stop. How far are you going to go automating until you don't have enough people in the tunnel making jobs? They don't have enough money to buy your product, get it? So if you have too much automation, the lights in the tunnel start going out, and there's no more mass. People can't buy your stuff because the machines have taken so many jobs. Yeah, you've got cheaper production by the machines, but no one's got any money to buy them. Who are you going to sell them to? Robots? You're going to sell your groceries to robots? If you only sell robotic parts, see, the lights in the tunnel are going out, and that's us. We are the lights in the tunnel. When the tunnel goes dark, our economy is gone. Failure, and that's where we're headed, because automation using AI and robotic technology has not stopped, and it's exponentially increasing. Again, time is running out.
You speak about cyber addiction, and this could potentially lead us down a bad road that could eventually end in a robo-Armageddon. According to a market research group study, American adults spend almost 4 hours a day on their phones, computers, and tablets, and another 4 hours a day watching television. In total, we are spending almost 11 hours a day consuming media on various platforms. We want everything faster and easier, yet we are increasingly being consumed by the electronic devices around us. Dr. Layman, in the technological age that we live in, what are some of the dangers involved with us all relying more and more on computers?
You can see is what we have is, if we're talking about then the economic factors, what we have done is we have failed to diversify our portfolio. We're only depending on one thing. Go for it. Come on, we're gambling. Number 7, okay, we bet on computer digital technology. That's it. That's the future. Say, what's the future? It's unending progress of computerization, binary computerization. What about the untoward risk of hyper-computerization, too much computers? For example, in my abnormal psychology class, we study this, and here's my thesis is, a lot of overuse of computers, robots, and AI is a type of abnormal psychology because it's not consistent with our well-being. For example, many people have a cyber fear. They live in fear of computer crashes, server overloads, or computer viruses. And some, stricken by a combination of crime phobia and cyber fear, worry constantly about e-crimes, such as computer hoaxes or scams, theft, or personal information lost by computer identity theft, etc. Okay? Then we have technology and mental health, and we talked about our digital world provides new triggers and vehicles for the expression of abnormal behavior. You can do whatever you're doing abnormally a lot faster and efficiently on a computer, like gambling. Okay? For many individuals who grapple with gambling disorder have found the ready availability of internet gambling to be all too inviting. We've got sexting, internet bullying, and so forth. Okay? And in the opinion of many clinicians, constant texting, tweeting, and internet browsing may contribute to what? Shorter attention spans in our young people and establish a foundation for attention problems. So what we may be creating is attention deficit syndrome, especially in our young people who expect instant gratification and they won't stick with it. A number of clinicians also worry that social networking can contribute to psychological dysfunctioning in certain cases. Okay? Let's look at, I talked about at the beginning of the video, I talked about I need help. Dave, help me. Dave, I'm losing my mind. I can feel it. Dave, please stop. Help me. I'm losing. I'm going. That was Hal in the movie Space Odyssey 2001 by Arthur C. Clarke, a brilliant book. So in that movie, remember the black monolith, the giant black rectangular slab who is there 4 million years ago. At the beginning of the show, they show a black monolith with a bunch of man-apes around it. And then slowly, do, do, do. The sun rose over the top of the monolith, and that was the birth of human intelligence, M.I., in the ancient pre-hominid species that was there at our birth. So this black, it's a black rectangular slab in space. Very mysterious, okay? And then in that movie also we have Hal, the brilliant computer. And they asked this question here: can computers develop schizophrenia? You ask what you can have from schizophrenia. They saying what they've done. This is what happened to Hal, okay? Hal was overloaded and he started to dysfunction, and he says, please don't turn me off, Hal. I'm dying, I can feel it. And Hal was in there disconnecting his tubes and so forth, so Hal wouldn't destroy the ship because he was schizophrenic. Now researchers in computer science at the University of Texas at Austin created a test of the so-called hyper-learning theory of schizophrenia. People, according to this hyper-learning theory, excessive chemical, the dopamine in the brain, floods the brains of people with schizophrenia, leading them to process stimulus information at too high a rate. The people are getting all the stimuli coming in from the environment. They're doing it too fast. They are unable to forget or disregard extraneous sensory information. Like you can hear the air conditioning in the background. They can't absorb, they can't ignore that, which leads to a process dubbed hyper-learning. As a result of hyper-learning, hyper-excessive learning, people with schizophrenia cannot distinguish between reality and illusion or recognize the barriers between unrelated pieces of information or unrelated experiences. They may think you are the same as your chair. You and the chair are one. There's a hole in the chair, so that means you got a hole in your pants, or vice versa, okay? According to this hyper-learning theory, these scientists did the same thing. They programmed a neural network called Discern and programmed to store information in ways that parallel the ways the human brain organizes word sentences and other bits of information into knowledge and memories. The researchers then simulated the effects of a dopamine flood by programming the computer system to process information at a faster and faster rate, while at the same time programming it to ignore less and less data. They discovered that after finishing this thing, the computer, the Discern system, began to display patterns of functioning similar to those found in people with schizophrenia. For example, retelling stories that had been programmed to recall, Discern began to place itself at the center of the retelling, often telling fantastical, delusional stories with it as the subject. In one instance, for example, the computer claimed that it had been responsible for a terrorist bombing. The computer said it was responsible for doing the bombing. The researchers found that the computer's delusional stories were similar to those produced by human participants with schizophrenia after they had been given similar pieces of information. So then my question is, if Hal and other modern computer can become schizophrenic, then can't we become schizophrenic by overusing computers? That's an unanticipated psychiatric finding, very new. I'd never heard of that. Have you?
I'd
never heard of it.
No.
So this is the correlation. If computers can become schizophrenic and Hal could do it, and their computer can be schizophrenic, would we also become schizophrenic by using computers? Because they do it, so you are what you do. So I would predict an unexpected rise in schizophrenia and other schizophrenic disorders, and here are some of the symptoms of schizophrenia. This is a checklist for schizophrenia. For 1 month, individual displays 2 or more of the following symptoms much of the time: delusions, false ideas, hallucinations, sensing things that aren't there, disorganized speech, very abnormal motor activity, including catatonia. Hey there, how are you doing? I'm catatonia. I am perfectly normal. I like Hal. Individual functions much more poorly in very life spheres than was the case prior to the symptoms. So you can't go to a job because you can't find your way there, and you think you're in Hollywood and you're in a movie and you're invading Mars instead of going to your job. Beyond this 1 month of intense symptomology, you have some degree of impaired functioning for at least 5 additional months. Okay, so schizophrenia, the key features are various psychotic symptoms. Psychotic means loss of reality, such as delusions, hallucinations, disorganized speech, restricted or inappropriate affect, that is mood, and kinetonia, rigidity. Those are the symptoms of schizophrenia. It looks to me like we're going to see a tremendous rise of schizophrenia, and that may be related as a secondary effect of overuse of computers.
Brings me to another question in psychology. Psychosomatic TechnoPhilia is a unique new medical term created by you. The condition, meaning an abnormal love of technology, is seen as an almost entirely undiagnosed and unrecognized form of OCD. Can you talk a little bit about the signs and symptoms that an individual might display that you believe could be potentially problematic?
First of all, I have to object somewhat, without being a difficult friend, is that I don't know that I would call this an obsessive-compulsive disorder. Okay, I don't know that it fits that. First of all, I'm a relative novice in the world of abnormal psychology. I'm trying, so I'm not going to, but we have already said that I don't know that it's an obsessive-compulsive. Here's an obsession. An OCD is what is it? Is defined as a disorder in which a person has recurrent and unwanted thoughts, a need to perform repetitive and rigid actions, or both. For example, cleaning compulsions are quite common. So people with OCD clean all the time when they don't have to. I'm not sure that this is the best diagnostic fit for what we're seeing in psychosomatic technophilia. I think it's more of an addictive process. And when I study addiction, whether it's a drug or something else, addiction has, the concept of addiction is defined by tolerance, withdrawal, and craving. Tolerance, withdrawal, and craving. Let's go to craving. If you crave something, you don't have to be obsessed by it, but if you have a crave, you're addicted to chocolate ice cream. You got to have it. You have a craving for it, almost a biological need. You crave it, you feel a need for it. You have a tolerance for it, meaning you can eat 10 times as much chocolate ice cream as any normal individual. You can tolerate it, it's okay. Don't worry about diabetes. And then withdrawal, if someone takes away, if your mother hides your chocolate ice cream, your wife says that's enough, you're eating it out of the house and home, you're having diarrhea from all this chocolate ice cream you're eating, that's enough. You go through withdrawal symptoms and beat her up. So the 3 concepts of addiction is defined by the symptoms of craving, tolerance, the high levels, and withdrawal. Now, I would say that's probably more a description of do you have people who crave? Ask yourself this question: do you crave or have to go on your cell phone? Is it perfectly utilitarian and logical, or do you crave it because you think you can't do without it because you crave it? And then you have tolerance for it. You could text and use a cell 24 hours a day until you put it to bed with you. And then you have withdrawal symptoms. Someone takes away your cell phone, that's the worst thing they can do besides kidnapping you. Then you've got an addiction. I'd say that's a behavioral addiction. So I think it's probably, psychosomatic technophilia is probably a behavioral addiction involving computing, and maybe it's what's called a dual diagnosis. I suspect more than OCD, maybe schizophrenia. So I'm saying, instead of an OCD, it's probably more of a behavioral addiction to computing and all the actions, and maybe an emergent schizophrenia, which we have not, including depression, which we have not yet diagnosed.
Fair enough. Dr. Layman, you talk about the final invention, which must be anti-AI, with a focus on controlling AI. How do you envision such a development? And is there currently any research being done to hopefully see an important breakthrough in the coming years?
This is a major problem. Sorry, I don't know of anything being done, because people don't even want to listen. We need anti-AI or something, and this is what James Barat agrees with me. He's gone and talked with these AI researchers. It's not my job to worry about the ethical consequences of AI or anti-AI. I just like robots. I'm a geek, so I'm not into the social thing. You take care of it. So their bystanders say, well, that's your problem. They're not worried about it, and it goes on and on because people don't, when I tell people this, and I've even gone to international and given talks as international groupings and given talks, and I've had, I won't say what group did this, the people in the audience were laughing at me. And my wife was there with me, and she saw them laughing while I'm talking. This was at a conference where I'm being honored as Man of the Year, and people in the audience were giggling. Now, why is that? That was rude, and I think the lady who is running that was embarrassed, and she mentioned, well, we will give you a lot of awards and this and that, and not, you don't. But see, when I'm at this conference, it's on the West Coast, and people in the audience giggle, that's rude and disrespectful because they don't believe me, they're in denial. Would these people like to debate me and see how strong they are? They better be ready, because I'm going to pull out my sword, and they better be ready, because I'm going to come after them. There's going to be a war. Do you understand? There's going to be a war for our survival. We're going to be pushed into a corner when we can't take it any longer. It will not. One person I said about this, he says, well, we're very adaptable. To a certain degree, but when we're on the losing side and AI is going up logarithmically straight up, and where capabilities like this, you see the disparity, it's unjust. And the people at the bottom, the black people and the Hispanics who are disadvantaged already, it's going to get worse because they're going up like that. And so Barack Obama, the president of the robots, introduced the robotic revolution in 2007 to the United States. No one is holding him accountable. No one is putting his feet to the fire. Is this just? This is why is this an oversight? Why is he getting a free ride from the press and knowing critically the press is not doing its job? They're too liberal. I'm a conservative and I'm Republican, and I believe I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian. I believe in God. I believe in nature, and I believe in mankind. Artificial intelligence is not made by God. It does not exist in nature, and it's eventually going to be an existential threat to mankind. Do you have any common sense at all and any love for your children? There's going to be a war, and Dr. Hugo de Garis has predicted the art-elect war, and he says it's going to scare the blank out of you by telling us this. We're all struggling to teach you. Will someone please listen and take note and take this serious? When I go to a conference or talk about other scholars, well, they'll smile and kind of walk, and then they walk away. They smile and shrug, well, it's not my problem. Okay, it's going to hit the fan because there's predicted to be a series of intelligence explosions like an atomic nuclear weapon. AI will go through a self-accelerating series of explosions, will suddenly go way beyond our own capability. And what the problem is, it's a setup. They're penetrating all domains of human endeavor at the proper time. Well, we ran out of time here. We got to 2045. We still got some time left. When the sand, pretty soon the sand will run out, and there's not going to be any time for reaction. And this is a quote right here, another one from this book here. This is Nick Bostrom, the faculty of philosophy at Oxford University. Our approach to existential risk, like being destroyed by AI, cannot be one of trial and error. There's no opportunity to learn from errors. The reactive approach, see what happens, limit damages, and learn from experience, is unworkable. So a lot of these things, guns are dangerous, why after you shoot enough people on the head or whatever, we learn, or certain cars dangerous, somebody's got to die or be hurt. This gradual trial and error is a typical way humanity learns. Unfortunately, somebody has to die before we learn a lesson. It's not this existential risk for this cannot be done. There's going to be a lot of people going to have to die. This is my prediction. How many thousands or hundreds of thousands of people will have to die before we open our eyes and cry? Because we're going to need to try. There's no salvation for us under the sky, unless it's going to be up to you and I.
Dr. Layman, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.